In this video, we're going to be doing a keystone sculpture. I'm using a N95 mask, and that's mostly to bulk it up. Sometimes I use aluminum foil or paper, but I have this handy, so I'm going to use it. The wood, notice that it's a keystone shape. I measured the keystone for the front of a house. This is a commission, and this is going to be cast out of concrete and then glued and bolted to the front of a house. So that is the exact shape for the particular house. Now at this point, I'm just massing it in. I'm using Chavant clay, and it's really nice and consistent. It almost feels a little bit like water clay, and it is a medium hardness clay. Using reference for lions is kind of difficult, but I did find a couple of references on Google Images. For animals, I tend to look for things on Google Images rather than any other website. You do find lots of stuff, and you should use something to categorize all your photos. I use PureRef, and if you use a tablet, you can move it around really quick or see your entire board with all your reference. It really works out well. I've seen sculptors that use paper and they just kind of print it up. That works well too, but I prefer just having references on a laptop or iPad. I did start with a sculpture laying flat, and ideally you want to sculpt reliefs on an easel. That way they're going to be seen directly, and then you can look at the light hitting the object. But at this point, I was just laying and bulking things in, so I didn't need it just yet. Now I have it at a 45-degree angle, and it's much easier to sculpt. So have your reliefs at a 45-degree angle or completely vertical and secure on an easel. One of the problems I found is that when you sculpt humans quite often, you are going to be finding that all your animals tend to look like humans. So at this point, it looks more like the lion from The Wizard of Oz, but eventually I'm going to make it a little bit more lion-like. Now I'm working on a few details. I did spend a couple more days on it and just creating more geometric planes. I find that these dentist tools work really well to do oil-based clay, and I found that scraping tools work best for oil-based clay and wooden tools work best for water-based clay. But one of the things I do, if I can't get my fingers inside a particular area, I'll just add the clay to the metal dentist tool, and then I'll add it to whatever I am modeling. The ears kind of blend a little bit into the hair, and one of the things that I find is that I like to clump the hair. I don't like to sculpt the hair like with individual strains of hair. It's way too confusing. If you look at old sculptures, everything has an origin and an end, and it's very basic and almost conceptual in the way they do hair. Hair is very difficult to do, so I try to mimic the classical Greek style for the hair of the lion. Don't want to go overboard with too many details. He's going to have a few whiskers going down his chin, but I don't want to add too much of it. And even having some of the patterns from the tool, the serrated tool, I think it looks kind of good. Remember, this is going to be going on top of a doorway, so it's going to be a little bit further up, so you don't need to have like crazy detail. And often it looks better to have flat, plain edges as opposed to very intricate round edges. So I'm creating the geometry of the lion to be flatter than it needs to be, because I think it's going to look better once the sunlight hits it. So even though I'm kind of smoothing it, and what I'm using is mineral spirits to smooth and get some of the edges kind of blurred out a bit. If you use mineral spirits or turpentine, it melts a little bit of the clay. You could also use like a heat gun to melt the edges. And the reason I'm doing that is I want the edges that are kind of clumpy to be blended a little bit more. And I'll add a little bit more detail to the face. So I want the face to have a little bit more geometric edges. If you look at the temples, for example, it's a line. I want the lines to be flat. Even in my human sculptures, I like to keep things really flat. I don't want too many rounded edges. One of the important things is that you should rotate your relief and look at your sculpture from various angles. And also, because this is going to be in direct sunlight, you want to light it directly from the top and from the top right, top left, because that's how the sun is going to be moving around. And you want to make sure that it looks good from the bottom looking up at the lion, because it's going to be sitting up much higher than your eye level. So it has to look better. Now I'm just going over it with a nice thick bristle brush. These brushes I've had for a long time. They're just oil painting brushes, very cheap bristle, and that's the sculpture. So I am gonna just keep it this way. If you look at the light, I kind of like the dramatic look of the lion. And the next step, the next few videos, is just cleaning up the sculpture and then making a mold and then casting it in concrete. So this is a commission, and I'll show you the results after it's done. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the rest of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.